All right, kids, today we're going to talk about a woman who is world famous. And even though you've likely never seen her face and you may not have heard her name, you know who she is.
It's chilly outdoors, but inside. For generations, frosty mornings have seemed warmer with stacks of
Aunt Jemima buckwheats.
right Aunt Jemima buckwheats, deep golden brown with a tantalizing buckwheat tang. It's the same today. Men still need a hearty, nourishing breakfast.
And men love Aunt Jemima buckwheats.
No buckwheats can equal that famous Aunt Jemima flavor.
And they're so easy.
That was a commercial for Aunt Jemima pancakes and syrup from the 1950s. And even there, it didn't show the actual face of the woman who first portrayed Aunt Jemima or say her real name, which is Nancy Green. And she didn't look like this. And the fact that, well, me and many of you who are watching this may know this face or this face or this face and not this one is a problem that I would like to focus on today, International Women's Day. However, it's been about 2 years now since the Aunt Jemima brand was changed to the Pearl Milling Company featuring this logo. And this decision frustrated Nancy Green's descendants, and many people were mad about it, saying that Quaker, who owns Pearl Milling Company and is owned by PepsiCo, which could be the subject of another video in and of itself, is racist for removing Nancy Green, and that erases her history. But as you'll see today, it was racist to put her on this label in the first place. In 1890, Nancy Green was hired by the R.T. Davis Milling Company, which was looking to employ a black woman as a mammy archetype to promote their new product. In 1893, she was introduced as Aunt Jemima at the World's Columbian Exposition held in Chicago in the guise of a plantation slave, where it was her job to operate a pancake cooking display. Her amiable personality and talent as a cook for the Walker family, whose children grew up to become Chicago circuit judges, helped establish a successful showing of the product, for which she received a medal and certificate from the Expo officials. After the Expo, Green was offered a lifetime contract to adopt the Aunt Jemima moniker and promote this pancake mix. However, it is likely this was part of the lore created for the character rather than Green herself. This marked the beginning of a major promotional push by the company that included thousands of personal appearances and Aunt Jemima merchandise. Green was one of the organizers of the Olivet Baptist Church in Chicago. Her career allowed Green the financial freedom to become an activist and engage in anti-poverty programs. More on this later. So this is already a huge success story, seeing how, according to a 1923 obituary in the Chicago Defender, Nancy Hayes was born into slavery in Montgomery County, Kentucky in 1834 and moved to Chicago to serve as a nurse and caretaker for the prominent Walker family. But I want to clear something up. A backstory emerged for Aunt Jemima, including her being born on a Louisiana plantation owned by Colonel Higbee. As his cook, she developed her own secret recipe for pancakes, which became famous as the best in the South. But the initial recipe for the pancake mix was the brainchild of Chris Rutt, a former editorial writer for the now defunct St. Joseph Gazette. Rutt and business partner Charles Underwood had acquired a flour mill and, by trial and error, perfected a recipe for self-rising pre-mixed pancake flour. According to M.M. Manring, author of Slave in a Box, The Strange Career of Aunt Jemima, despite the novelty of their new product, Rutt and Underwood encountered difficulty branding it. While wandering the streets of St. Joseph, Missouri, Rutt happened upon a performance of Old Aunt Jemima, a popular minstrel song written by black musician Billy Kersans in 1875. The song features a mammy. The partners eventually sold their company and the recipe to R.T. Davis, owner of R.T. Davis Milling Company, the largest flour mill in Buchanan County, Missouri. And before I continue, we need to go more in depth about the mammy caricature. From slavery through the Jim Crow era, the mammy image served the political, social, and economic interests of mainstream white America. During slavery, the mammy caricature was posited as proof that blacks, in this case black women, were contented, even happy as slaves. Her wide grin, hearty laughter, and loyal servitude were offered as evidence of the supposed humanity of the institution of slavery. See, Vaudeville was popular in the United States from the 1880s until the early 1930s. It offered a more family-friendly atmosphere than the variety shows that had come before, which catered mostly to rowdy working-class audiences. Vaudeville began at Tony Pastor's Opera House in New York's Bowery. By 1900, it had become a nationwide network of hundreds of theaters and was the dominant form of American mass entertainment. For a time, vaudeville was the most popular form of live theater, but it died out with the advent of talking pictures. Many of the 20th century's most famous performers got their start in vaudeville. Also, the heritage of blackface minstrelsy played a major part in the evolution of the song, dance, comedy acts, and routines that vaudeville popularized. But actual performances in blackface were mostly relegated to a single skit or a song. However, blackface in vaudeville also provided opportunities for black people who performed in blackface. The success of black comedians such as Ernest Hogan, Burt Williams, and George Walker opened the door for multi-racial casts and for later black performers to take the stage without blackface. As Aunt Jemima, which is racist, and her most cartoon-like incarnation, Mammy stands with Sambo, Uncle Tom, and Uncle Ben, the Coon, the Pickaninny, and the Gollywog. The Mammy caricature made appearances in the famous Amos and Andy radio show and in D.W. Griffith's movie The Birth of a Nation, based on Thomas Dixon's The Klansman. The Mammy defends her white master's home against black and white Union soldiers. The message was clear. Mammy would rather fight than be free. In the famous movie Gone with the Wind, the black Mammy, portrayed by Hattie McDaniel, also fights black soldiers whom she believes to be a threat to the white mistress of the house. This is essentially who Quaker Oats retired in February of 2021, with a few humanizing updates along the way.
Ever think you'd find a light syrup that tasted better than a regular?
With Aunt Jemima, now you're cooking.
Not only does Aunt Jemima Light taste better than Log Cabin Regular, it's got more maple in it.
With Aunt Jemima, now you're cooking.
They gave her pearls. And on social media, many expressed outrage over the perceived erasure of the legacy of the woman who has served as the brand's models. A popular claim circulating on Facebook is that Nancy Green, the original Aunt Jemima model, was an inspirational figure. She was, she is, and her family was among those who were upset. But see, it should also be noted that Green's descendants, as well as the descendants of another black woman who portrayed Aunt Jemima, filed a lawsuit against Quaker Oats, arguing that the company exploited Green and that her family was owed billions in royalties. The lawsuit was later dismissed after a judge ruled that the plaintiffs did not provide proof that they were related to the woman who portrayed Aunt Jemima, Nancy Green. And I said this on Rebel HQ and I'll say it again. If people really cared about Nancy Green's legacy, her success, and that being passed down to her family, I might add, Quaker and PepsiCo should put Nancy Green's actual image on their bottles and boxes this year. I mean, it's been almost exactly 100 years since her death at the age of 89, and her birthday was just on March 4th. So even though this was a bigger deal a few years ago, it would be perfect to give the proceeds of those sales to her descendants right now. Oh, and I want to clear something else up. Nancy Green did not die a millionaire. In fact, she could not live off the earnings she made from her portrayal of Aunt Jemima, and continued to work as a housekeeper until a few years before her death in 1923. Quote, while no evidence exists to suggest that Green died a millionaire, she did make enough money as both a housekeeper and for her promotional work as Aunt Jemima to support the missionary work of the Olivet Baptist Church in Chicago, the oldest active Black Baptist church in Chicago, where it is believed that she was a founding member. Before I go, look, Nancy Green just got a proper headstone at her burial site a few years ago, and now would be a good time to make Nancy Green famous instead of Aunt Jemima, in addition to the women who took up that mantle since Green's death. So, to Nancy Green and to all of these women, I say, Happy International Women's Day, and we're gonna be all right.